we coupled that with observations we had made through the years of parents we had worked with professionally, or, families we'd worked with, and seeing parents in our own offices behave in not the greatest ways with their kids. And so together we decided we need to come up with some remedy or some way to help parents do a better job and preserve that relationship with their teens in these really tricky years.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Ochs, and you're listening or watching the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm excited today to feature two awesome authors, and they do so much more. But today we're going to distill down a bunch of the tips that they have for parents just like you on how to be the most awesome parent in raising your kids for achievement in the future. We're going to design this today around college admissions, but it's so much more. We're not just looking at tech today. We're not just looking at college admissions. We're talking about how to raise the best child, and we have two absolute experts live from Menlo Park, California. We have Cynthia Muchnick, and also San Clemente, California, beach town. I love it because I'm a former surfer. Jenn Curtis. Welcome to both of you. It's great to have you both here, and congratulations on your new book, The Parent Compass, that comes out in September of this year.
Thank you, Josh. It's great to be here.
Cynthia, let's get started with you. Why did you guys write this book?
So Jenn and I have been working in the private college counseling profession called educational consulting for about the last, 10 to 20 years between the two of us. And we both are also parents of both teenagers and younger kids, and have basically worked with teens and preteens for our entire careers. And this particular age group excites us both probably the most because we just have our finger on the pulse of what's going on in adolescence, and we really relate to and love helping adolescents succeed and feel good about themselves. So the Parent Compass was actually born on March 12th, 2019, the day the Varsity Blues scandal erupted. And Jenn and I got on the phone to one another for about 90 minutes, feeling like we had been punched in the gut and had the wind knocked out of us when we saw, across the headlines for days and still up until now, parents really behaving so badly and crossing really inappropriate lines when it came to raising their teens and specifically in the college admissions process.
Hey, Jenn, tell us a little bit more about what are you teaching parents that they need to ingrain in their student?
We tried to focus a lot, as Cindy mentioned, we were seeing these patterns prior to Varsity Blues that were troubling to us. We were seeing kids who had no voice. We were seeing, and in the same breath, seeing parents who were talking for their kids. And we saw things that there were patterns where kids were behaving one way and the way that their parents were parenting. And then there were kids who were really thriving. And we were really watching closely how their parents were behaving. So we focus a lot in the book on living life with intention and teaching our kids to do that. Some of our tips are, and we can dive into these more, but we talk about goal setting. We talk about parents praising the journey and not the destination. And we really wanted to help equip parents to understand these patterns that were leading to these kids thriving and help give them the tools to do the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I like to keep it practical and tactical. So share with us, what is a goal setting tip or an intention tip on how to be intentional that one of our listeners could use with their student?
So with goal setting, personally, I set goals with all of my students at the beginning of my work with them. I want them to feel empowered, and that's what goal setting can help us do. So we try to help parents understand what makes a good goal. Is it measurable? And we go through the steps to help them understand that in order to set a goal that's meaningful, it should be measurable. And then we talk about setting measurable objectives. So I like students to set 3 measurable objectives for each of their goals, steps that are going to help them get there. Vague ones are not going to be helpful. So for example, I want to earn a B in chemistry. Okay, well, what's going to help you get there? Well, I'd like to, step number 1, I'm going to study harder. Well, that's not a great objective. What does study harder mean? Can I assess whether or not I studied harder? Not really. So a better objective might be, well, I really don't like chemistry. And so I am leaving my chemistry homework to do last at night when I'm tired. So a better objective might be, I'm going to do my chemistry homework when I get home first, when I'm fresh. So as an example, I think we need to help them stay measurable and give them the steps to get there.
Yeah. To tease that goal setting idea even a little further, we encourage parents as well to understand what their goals are for their kids, because really every parent group we've ever spoken with, every audience, every one-on-one parent, we all want to raise kind, thoughtful, happy, contributing kids on this world. What parent would disagree to that statement? None. But by pigeonholing our kids and pushing them into areas and this achievement culture that really just has become so pervasive, we're as parents kind of choosing the wrong goal. If our goal is truly happy, resilient, kids who can speak for themselves, then we have to equip them and allow them to do that. So a goal that parents could also make for themselves would be to really understand your individual child and what makes them excited. Their goal may not be to be a straight A student and get into an Ivy League college. Their goal may be to become a chef and go to culinary school, or their goal may be to enjoy school, but also enjoy extracurriculars and have a more balanced, less stressful life, whatever it might be. So parents too have to align themselves with their kids' goals, and they can communicate them together if those conversations could happen. So that would be another way of looking at it.
I love that. You use the word resilient. Can you guys talk to me about what are a few ways that you can instill resilience in students? You also have another phrase in your book, grit. Talk to us about a few things parents can do, or maybe for everybody listening to this right now, maybe you have a friend that needs to read this book. What are some things, to both of you authors, that you would want our listeners to tell their friend down the street, or that other parent at school? What are some ways to build in resilience and maybe even some grit?
One of the things that we talk about is to focus on the journey and not the destination. So praising the effort that it took to get the B or the A, because we all know that a B for some students is really cause to celebrate, right? And so praising what it took to get there as opposed to the destination, the grade itself. I noticed your effort working on that. Or when something doesn't work out, making okay the fact that it didn't work out and helping your child. I think a very important step in understanding the idea of praising the journey as opposed to the destination is the conversation piece, where when the child does not reach their desired outcome, what can we fix next time? How can we brainstorm together what stood in your way and how you can continue to work toward that?
Love that. Cynthia, do you have any tips on if a student fails or if they succeed? What are a couple ways you can talk to them about that?
Sure. Well, as we all know, as adults with hindsight, and as we've told a lot, that the fear of failure and failing is where we learn the most, right? So, I wrote my college essay on a theme called Dare to Fail Gloriously 100 years ago. And the idea of taking risks and taking chances and being willing to do things that you're not comfortable necessarily doing, exploring subjects that are new to you, not always taking the safest route so that you can learn along the way. And whether failure comes academically in a course that didn't work out, on a test the way that you wanted it to, or failure happens in an activity that you attempt that you're not good at or that you just can't get better at, we know that we learn the most from those mistakes and how we bounce back from them. And that ties into what Jenn said about when this failure or this, lack of reaching a goal happens, that actually should be celebrated. That's okay. This is the time in life while these kids are living under our roofs to make those mistakes and to kind of help them figure out how to pick themselves up and brush themselves off and, and self-advocate and start over and try a different tact with the same, situation, or move into a new direction. I think it's the pushing kids that come from parents that really, creates this dissonance and this noise that is so hard for students to kind of get past, because they're so fragile and worried about pleasing their parents and not disappointing them and not failing, that, a lot of college kids go off and they're known as teacups now because they're just so fragile. They can't figure out how to do anything on their own because their parents have paved the way or monitored or managed or micromanaged. And I think this idea of making mistakes and learning from them, we all know that's just kind of one of the common, tenets in life when we're raising our kids. We want them to make these mistakes now so that when they make them outside of our home, whether they're at school without us right there or whether they're beyond in a job in the real world, they can recover from that and learn from it and move forward.
100%. The students are a lot like a startup in a kind of a startup challenge where you're failing to get to the end as quick as you can. And every failure is another way, right? It took 10,000 light bulb failures to invent the light bulb, right? But he didn't call them failures. He's like, I know 9,999 ways to not invent it. And I knew it would take a lot, right? And I love that. There's an old phrase called failure is not a person, it's a project or something along those lines. And I think that's so great what you two are doing. Hey, I want to ask you something that we didn't prepare for, but I think this is an interesting question. I'm really big into taking these personality tests for our staff here at Smart Social because our mission to keep students safe online so they can someday shine online and get that dream college, career, internship, and everything else. One of the things that I do with my staff is we take personality tests. We're always like, oh my gosh, that's your personality. That makes sense. Last night I took an Enneagram test and found out what number I am and stuff. Have you guys ever heard of schools giving students a personality test where there's no bad results? It's merely, oh wow, your strength is here. Why are we focusing so much on this when you're going to shine here? Are there tests that students take to really show where they're going to shine?
When they sit down with students planning maybe their college journey or looking at schools that might be fits or not fits, and they've looked at their transcript and their test scores and tried to come up with matches. I believe there's some sort of, student questionnaire and even a parent questionnaire that's completed internally. I know that Jenn and I both, in working with our students, have a student questionnaire at the beginning of our work that allows the students to really provide their answers to the things that excite them, something that they, failed in or learned from, their favorite quote, how their bedroom is decorated, what they like to do in their free time. We want to get to know these goals. And it kind of reminds me, and this is a little bit linked to what you're asking, of a student that Jenn and I both know and worked with whose parent was so insistent that this student write their college essay about how they skipped kindergarten or something. It was the student we talk about in the book. And the mom felt that was so important that colleges know that this student was young and advanced and whatever. And the student was really wanting to write about how much he loved cooking and how being a baker and a cook connected him with his friends and with his culture and even with his family. And it led him even to trying out for one of those cooking reality shows. I mean, it was a really neat story about him. It was off the beaten path. He was kind of an athletic kid and a little bit cool socially, but he had this side interest. And when you're looking for personality and what, makes you who you are, Jenn and I had this really challenging, disconnect, I guess, with the parent of this student. And so the student offered to kind of, for his mother's sake, write both essays for her. And which one do you think ended up getting sent off to the colleges? The one about being the cook. And, ultimately, I think it's under, that personality test going on in schools. I'm not sure how much either time or resources counselors at schools put into that. But I do think there is this sense of needing to understand, and what makes your child excited and, help them along the way, find those things, find their journey. Jenn, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. One of the points that we make in the book is that we want to encourage parents to accept and love the child they have, not the child they want to inauthentically create. And I think it's really important for parents to come at parenting understanding what they bring to the relationship. So what their insecurities and what their past has impacted, how it's impacted their own parenting practices and what they're putting on their kids. A silly example that I used was one of my daughters loved ballet, and I was really into sports growing up, and I resisted. I did. And it was only after she convinced my husband to like build her this giant ballet bar and she practiced, I was like, what am I doing? I need to, I'm talking the talk. I need to walk the walk. So we really are encouraging parents to understand who it is that they are parenting. And even when they don't, mesh with their interests, support them anyway, and dive right into helping them find ways to explore those interests. Another thought to more directly answer your question is, I do use an assessment in my work with students called U Science, YOU Science. And I have found it to be a helpful tool where it does have students actually perform tasks rather than relying on their own self-report. And from there, helps them to understand what their strengths are and how that might translate to any number of fields that they might want to go into. And I found that it's been a valuable tool for parents to look at and really understand, on paper, what unique strengths their kids have. And how that relates to their relationship with them even.
I love that. And I also love the story that you're talking about with your daughter, where you didn't want to force your views. And yeah, it takes a little bit of a gut check every once in a while, right?
Yeah, Jen touched a little bit on that. When we were in the early stages of writing this book many months ago, we were challenged to teach parents how to self-reflect. And we kind of use the biblical term physician heal thyself a little bit without being religious in any way. But the idea that you can't help your kids until you sort of have taken a really good look at who you are as a parent and all the biases that you bring to the table, what your educational background was, what your parenting style is, how you grew up. Did you pay for college? Did your parents pay for college? And how are you going to do the same for your kids or different? And then how your spouse or partner, or if you're doing it on your own, how you're able to kind of parent, but not just press your view and your biases onto your own kids. So this idea of sort of self-reflecting and taking a good hard look. And in the book, we offer this parent questionnaire challenging parents to answer these pretty hard questions, and then a teen questionnaire, and then for the parent and the teen to sit down together and kind of share each of their answers to those questions in order to help open up that dialogue. So it's sort of another way that they kind of check each other's personalities and, and goals and directions that they're trying to go in. So it's been very interesting, even this journey, because Jen and I are certainly not perfect parents. We don't have every answer either. So we had to turn to psychologists, thought leaders, school counselors, educators to, gain from them also their expertise and their feedback in certain areas. And it's been a great learning journey for us too, as both professionals and parents.
I love it. Hey, I want to thank both of you for coming out here today. It's really an honor. Those of you listening or watching this, the book is on pre-sale. It's available on Amazon.com right now and everywhere else that books are available. You can go pick up the Kindle or the paperback. It's coming out soon. If it's already out, you can click the links below or above to go pick it up and support these awesome authors as they share with you their tips and tools. I hope you see that this isn't just about technology. We haven't once talked about tech. We've talked about building the whole child, making your child, as both you, Jen, and Cindy have said, resilient, full of grit, and enjoying that journey, laughing when they fall down and going, well, that was silly, but what are we going to learn from it? How are we going to move on? How are we going to get better? I hope that you can instill those values in your kids. We at Smart Social are all about using things with a purpose instead of just a pastime. Parents, if you're listening or watching this right now, please consider in middle school setting up some sort of a portfolio for your kids, a private portfolio in middle school. You go to smartsocial.com, take one of our free webinars that has served hundreds of thousands of people, and learn how to start getting your kids to talk about their projects, their purpose, their pastime, and all these passions they have by building something out that's fun, that then in high school you can launch. And it's not something to show off. It's here's the projects that I did, that I learned, what I'm hanging out with and stuff like that. Consider those things. It makes all of this, in our opinion, a little bit better. Thank you to both of you authors. I really appreciate both of you today. The rest of you, we'll see you on the next episode. As always, keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching. We'll see you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.